What's up guys, it's Bailey. Welcome back to the channel and thanks so much for tuning in. Today's video is going to be a tutorial walking you through how to get this look using some brand new products from the new Smashbox Crystalized collection that they sent me a couple days back, as well as the new Physicians Formula, the Healthy Powder collection. The brand also sent me a few days back. A lot of these products I'm using for the first time, so still getting familiar with them. Things don't always come out as we expected. It took a little bit to get to this final product right here. So if you're ready for that emotional roller coaster, let's go ahead and dive in because I'm ready to get this weird excuse for a ponytail out of the frame. Let's zoom in and let's get going. Okay, so first I'm going to start off with a primer-ish. This is the Smashbox Primerizer that they have customized for this new Crystalized collection. So it's called the Crystalized Primerizer and it has kind of a pink pearlescent tint to it. I think this is really nice because I'm going to be going, ooh, that has a pretty strong pink pearly shift to it. I'm not mad at it. But I'm going to be going in with a new powder foundation, you'll see pretty shortly. So I figure this will be a really nice way to prime. In case you missed my favorite primers video, it's been like maybe over a year since I've posted it, but I am not a fan of slippery silicone-y kinds of primers, more in favor of lotion-y type primers. So this, the original formula, is actually one that I really like on days that I feel like I need it. I have combo skin and more often than not I find that no primer is the best primer, but on certain days when I feel like I need a little bit of extra hydration to even out my skin texture between the dryness I get on my cheeks and the oiliness I get down the center, more hydrating lotion like this is one that I find helps my foundation lay evenly and last a little bit longer throughout the day. And I really like the finish this is giving my skin. So if it has the same formula, like they haven't changed much else besides that luminescence, I can see this really working for me long term. Now I'm going to do some quick and light concealing. Because I am using a powder foundation, I want to use a liquid concealer first, but I'm just doing like a really light amount. It's probably even too much because it's the e.l.f. 16-hour camo concealer and a little bit goes a long way with that. But I'm just doing my under eye area because I really want to test the coverage of the powder foundation I'm going to use, which, while we're talking about it, is the Physicians Formula, the Healthy Powder. They sent me all of the shades they have in this new range of powder foundations, and they say it is medium to full coverage. So to put that to the test, I really want to make sure that, you know, I have the heavy lifting in my under eye area done because that's where I have like the most severe discoloration, especially with this cough and cold that I have going on. But I want to leave like my blemishes, any redness, that kind of stuff relatively untouched just so I can get a good feel for how truly full coverage this powder foundation can be. So the shade that I'm going to go in with of this foundation is LN4, which I believe stands for Light Neutral 4, and they actually have neutral, warm, and cool undertones for quite a few skin tones, like all the way from light to deep, which is fairly unusual for Physicians Formula since they tend to have a relatively narrow range of skin tones in their foundations. This one is maybe the broadest I've ever seen from the brand. And to apply that, I'm going in with the giant IT Cosmetics brush. This is one of my favorites for applying powder foundation. It can get a little tricky, and I've mentioned this before, up here for me because my brows are so close to my hairline, but you know, on a day like today, I am just not gonna sweat it. Oh my gosh, can you see that pearlescent? I'm just getting like strong peachy pink shifts on my forehead right now. That might, if I were to wear that alone, at first I kind of thought it evened my skin out nicely, but now under certain lights I could see it being like fish scale skin, but not in a cool human way, if that makes sense. I don't know that I would ever wear that alone. So in addition to being medium to full coverage, this also says it's supposed to be a natural satin looking finish, and I'm still kind of getting some powderiness, and I'm still seeing some redness on my cheeks, or I mean pretty much anywhere where I still have redness. It's not totally covered up. Okay, so there is 1.5-ish layers. It's kind of hard to count layers of powder foundation, I think, but there is at least one solid layer of this on my face. And I have to say it's not quite as full as I would like especially for a foundation that claims to be full coverage. Sometimes what can help though is taking a water, like a setting spray, and then going back in with a dry brush into the same powder and buffing more product into that. So that's exactly what I'm going to do, especially because in this new Smashbox Crystalized collection, they have 3 new primer waters. One is Crystal Clarity. It says it has lavender and sweet orange. The next is Clary Sage and Tea, and that's called Aura Shield. And then the last one is called Love Ritual, and it has jasmine and a rose in it. I think I'm gonna go with the Crystal Clarity, which has the lavender and sweet orange, because that orange just feels like it'll be a little energizing for me right now. So with a healthy misting of that on my face, I'm once again going in with this powder. It smelled really good, by the way. More orangey, I think, than lavendery, but I want to work really fast with this just to make sure I still have that excess moisture on my skin to help build and grab onto this product. And the nice thing about that tip or trick with using primer water or any kind of setting spray in between your powder foundation layers is it not only helps build the product, but it extends the life of the foundation, and it also helps take away that powderiness of it, like as you're working with the foundation, as opposed to going in at the end of everything, one final spritz, which I'll still sometimes do, but it just kind of helps take it away progressively rather than having an absolutely soaked face at the end of doing your makeup. You can kind of work in layers in that way. Okay, so that kind of helped with the coverage. I think we're getting a little bit closer to full coverage, not complete full coverage. You can still see some things here, but it still feels, oh, and up here, but it still feels pretty lightweight. I'm gonna give my skin one more misting with this spray and then fill in my brows and then come back for some bronzer. So my spray has dried, my brows are done. I was kind of lazy today. I just ran my Anastasia Beverly Hills Dip Brow Gel in the shade Medium Brown through my brows, so they're not quite as defined as I normally like them, but the job is done. Also, as I continue to look at this foundation, it's a little too light. I feel like I need to graduate one shade up, which will put me in the medium portion of the spectrum of foundation, because this is just washing me out a little bit too much, unless it oxidizes, but I think it would have done that by now, so I think I just need to go one more shade up. For the bronzer, I'm going to be using the Bare Minerals bronzer in the shade, or it's the Endless Summer bronzer in the shade Faux Tan. Just talked about this in a review where I was talking about the entire new Clean Glow collection that Bare Minerals sent me. This is the brush from that same video that I'm using, the Seamless Shaping and Finish brush. In that video, I didn't know when the collection would be launching, and literally the day after I posted that, it went live on like Ulta's website, Sephora's website, so if you were curious about it, you can go ahead and check it out there. I really like the liquid bronzers from that collection, but because I'm using a powder today, I don't, believe it or not, I have actually used liquid powder or liquid over powder foundation products, and some powder foundations tolerate it really well, but as a rule of thumb, it's kind of a no-no, so I'm not going to test it today with a new foundation. So that is why I'm using the powder version of this today, even though I've actually really been liking the liquid version of that. Maybe something I could do before applying the powder foundation, kind of one of those reverse foundation, what's it called? Where you put your blush and highlight and contour underneath your foundation, do one of those things with the liquid, but for today it's the bronzer and I really like it. I'm also going to go ahead and be pretty generous with this outside of the areas I would normally apply my bronzer, just because it's coming off a little too deep in contrast against the lighter foundation that I have on that just feels a little bit too light for me. So I'm just going to kind of deepen up and bronze my overall complexion back to a little bit closer to what it normally would be. And part of it's because I applied it too heavy out here. You could totally go a little bit more light-handed with it and look normal, but right now I feel like I have a little bit too much contrast between my the highlight of my cheeks and my contour. Speaking of highlighter, there is one in this collection with the same gorgeous packaging as the eyeshadow palette. It has a hint of pink to it, and so I'm debating whether I try and put this all over my cheeks, hoping that it gives me a blushed look, but more often than not when that happens, it just kind of washes me out because it doesn't look like I'm wearing blush unless you look at some angles. So I think I'm going to go in with an actual blush, just taking something that's in front of me. This is the e.l.f. Contouring Blush and Bronzing Powder, taking the blush from that and applying that pretty lightly to the apples of my cheeks. And now I'm going to go in with this highlight on the Wet n Wild P75 brush. I just did a full review of all of Wet n Wild brushes if you want to go check it out, but this I talked about as being one of my absolute favorites for highlights, just because it's perfect for getting, in really precise areas, but then really blending and blowing it out pretty much wherever you want it. So the undertones of this highlighters seem to be almost identical to the undertones here, where it's pink at some angles, a golden peach at others. It's maybe a little more pink than peach, especially compared to the primerizer, but that could also depend on what base or what blush you might be wearing it over. Also, I just want to see if we might be able to kick this up a notch. Oh yeah, sure did. Oh yeah. Now for the eyes, I've actually already done a look or worn a look. I didn't actually walk through it, but was wearing a look using the eyeshadow palette from this collection when I reviewed that Bare Minerals Clean Glow collection. And it was a mixture of the gray shade in the crease, this burgundy shade in the outer corner, a little bit of these pinks across the lid, and then I really made it pop with this shimmery green shade right here, which they do say in the instructions, or like when you open it up, there's a big old sticker that says for best color payoff to use that green shade Mystic Opportunity, as well as this one over here, Hex Appeal, with your finger, just to make sure it's as pigmented as you want. And they do have a slightly different texture than the rest of the shadows. Like, they're distinctly different from a shimmer in that they feel more like a pressed metal almost, but I was pretty impressed with how they looked, at least that one shade did, wearing my finger. Today, however, I think I'm gonna go in with the cream, or the liquid shadows, I guess these are called. Always On liquid eyeshadows. I love the packaging here, and there are a couple shades in this collection. I was actually wearing this shade in my review of the Hourglass Vanish Seamless Finish Liquid Foundation. I was wearing this shade Bronzite Bruja across my lid, so I think I'm gonna do another liquid shadow, just not this one, since again, I've already done that. And it lasted pretty well. I was pretty impressed with the lasting power, even though when I first got these, immediately swatched them on my hand and noticed they didn't totally dry down at first. Thought they might crease when I wore them, but surprisingly that shade didn't. So today, I think I'm gonna try mixing a few. First, let's play with this lavender. So this lavender is called Dream Prism, and I guess with some layering, it is becoming as pigmented as it actually looks in the packaging, but at first, if you just put one layer of this guy on, it looks like it could be a really, really pretty eye gloss, even for someone who isn't like a colorful shadow wearer. Then I'm taking my Real Techniques 201 to go in and blend that through the crease and just pat it out a little bit. And then I'm taking that excess that brush might have taken off in the crease and running it along my lower lash line, which actually wasn't a lot. So I'm just gonna go in and apply that straight to my lower lash line. So now to add a little bit of depth to my outer corner, I'm gonna go in with this shade That's Fire and just start packing that in out there. But it's actually, maybe it takes layering, but it's not quite as deep as I thought it would be. So as these dry down, I'm noticing that the shimmers are coming out a lot more. They look kind of metallic or like one smooth glossy finish when you first apply them, but then as they dry down, those distinct shimmers tend to peek through a little bit more through whatever base is in here as it dries down. I don't love the way these two are blending in with each other, but that could also be due in large part to the colors I selected. This is coming off as a more orangey shade, That's Fire, which makes sense given the shade name, but I thought it was gonna be like kind of a deeper copper, but it's coming out to be pretty orangey. So to make things just extra confusing, I'm going to use a third shade. This is the gold shade, which is called Richcraft, and apply that to the inner corner and work that in, maybe to meet that fire shade. Okay, so here is that color down. I feel like this looks a little messy. I maybe should have started with one of the shadows to really blow out my crease, like a matte shadow in the crease, because feels like it just, maybe that's what I'll do right now. I'm just gonna take the gray shade from this palette and run that through my crease, which could totally mess up this look. But that's what you get when you don't have a plan. Okay, so this kind of worked, but definitely should have been done under these sparkle shadows because running that through my crease knocked a lot of those sparkles down. So now it looks like this really harsh, awkward line of, I don't know, I'm just not happy with it. And I'm still not quite happy with the look, so one last ditch effort before we call it a day with this eye look. I'm gonna go in with this shade, this deep shimmery brown right here, and apply that to my outer corner so I get the kind of depth I was anticipating, because there's just something about this orange that is not working for me. Which is not to say I don't like the product, it's just I think without knowing the textures of these shadows, I maybe would have worked with them differently had I realized that they had such chunky glitter to them. I think I like them better as shadows worn over a powder shadow look, which is how I was wearing that first one that I talked, this shade that I, was it that shade? Whatever shade I talked about wearing in that hourglass video, that I was wearing over other shadows, and so it added this beautiful metallic pop. Whereas here they just look like kind of sparkly watercolors almost, which is not bad, just not what I was prepared for. And that's what you get when you do first impressions. Okay, so hear me out. I'm gonna test this theory of liking it over powder eyeshadows and go in one last time with this lavender shade just to really test that theory and see how it looks over some powder. Yeah, see, look at how pigmented that looks now right off the bat. Yes, I prefer that so much better. Okay, finally, this is a look that I'm liking. I'm gonna apply mascara and then come back for the lips. Okay, so mascara turned into mascara and lashes, but what are you gonna do? These are the Allure Magnetic Opulent Accent Lashes. Yes, that's what they're called. Onto the lips, last step of this whole thing. There are 3 in this collection to choose from. The shade Practical Magic, great movie. This I feel like is going to be a little bit too light for my natural lip color today. I feel like it's going to be a great overgloss or maybe something to balance an even heavier smoky eye. Then there is Ya Heal Me, which I feel like is the one I'm going to go with because it complements the lavender and my eye look really well. And then there is this beautiful coral shade called Free Spirited, but it's a little bit too pinky coral to go with my eye look. So we are landing on Ya Heal Me and we're going in with it. In a twist of events, this is way less pigmented than I thought. The pigment early comes in more so in like this blue frosty shift, which means that if you put this over another like a red or a black lipstick or like a deep burgundy lipstick, this is gonna be something intense, but still pretty complimentary of the eye look. All right, so there is the finished look. It took us a while to get to this finished product, but I'm still pretty pleased with it, and it's not through any fault of the product. It's more so me not understanding how they all work together quite yet, but I think we got to a place I really like to. Stay tuned for more info on this, the Healthy Powder Foundation. Like I said, this is a first impression. So far, I'm actually pretty pleased with where we landed in terms of coverage. Finish, like I feel like it's very satin. I mean, let's get real. A lot of that is probably due to the satiny bronzer and highlight that is just giving my skin it's a more flattering finish than it deserves right now, to be honest, for all the decongestants I'm on. But it's looking pretty good around the rest of the skin in terms of a satiny texture. Still not totally full coverage, but I'll continue playing with it and plan on seeing a full review of the whole Healthy Powder line from me here soon on the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys!